Attorney General turned these hard drive and other evidences to FBI. Is this a normal process of how these things are investigated, Mr. Carrick?
No. And here's why. The FBI investigates federal crimes, okay? In this case, the federal crime would have been, if the FBI determined, some child pornography on the computer. There were photos of kids, underage kids, in their underwear. There's a photo of a young girl half exposed. There's things like that was in the computer. So the FBI would normally look at something like that, perhaps. But normally, these things are handled at a local level. The county police, the city police, maybe the state police. But in this case, we turned over the evidence to the county. They gave it to the state gave it to the FBI, and to date, I got to be honest, I don't know what they did with it. There's no report that the child was interviewed or there was an investigation conducted by the county or the state police.
还有就是就是民主党现在的主流媒体啊，一直在攻击说这个电脑啊，这个在修理的过程中，这个硬盘被爆出来，这个过程他们觉得不相信啊，他们觉得这里面是一种阴谋策划，是一种阴谋论。您是怎么看这个？
So we have an additional question. Right now, a lot of mainstream media, mainly the one on the Democratic side, they keep saying this. They don't believe this story of how this hard drive got out from this repair shop, and then they keep attacking this story and label it as some sort of conspiracy theory. So, what are your thoughts on why media reacted this way, or some media at least?
Well, look, the media reacted this way, the mainstream media primarily, because they want to protect Joe Biden. That's the reason. They don't want any of this exposed because it would hurt Joe Biden's campaign. Joe Biden has been compromised. His son is a lot of people would call him a drug addict. I would say he's a junkie. He is lower than a drug addict. He's, based on the photos, based on video. I know the mainstream media has said this is Russian disinformation. In order for it to be Russian disinformation, they would have had to hypnotize Hunter Biden and sent him into that shop with the computer. It was Hunter Biden. He gave them the computer. He signed to release it. The FBI came to that facility. They gave the vendor a receipt for the hard drive, and they have now, as of now, the FBI says that there is an active investigation as of 2019 on Hunter Biden and money laundering. There's money laundering all over that hard drive. So we know that the money laundering investigation that they're doing now relates to the hard drive. This wasn't Russian disinformation. Those videos are Hunter Biden. The photos are Hunter Biden. And the text messages and the emails we have put together in timing with actual schedules. So the travel schedule for Hunter Biden and his father relating to emails, they all correspond. There's nothing fake about the hard drive, the laptop. It's all real. But the mainstream media doesn't want to talk about it because they know that it compromises and creates vulnerabilities for Joe Biden, who wants to be the president of the United States.
您刚才说的是3个方面的罪啊，就是起诉罪证。但是就关于这里面他跟这个叶简明啊，就中共的叶简明，还有何志平的这种联络，以及董公文就中共的间谍一起。这是不是这个在违反了外国人代理法这块，能不能对他进行起诉？这一点你们当时有没有想到？
Mr. Carrick, you have talked about the 3 directions of investigation of the contents of the hard drive, but Lu De wants to know regarding to Hunter Biden's contacts with Chinese Communist Party's spy agents. like Ye Jianming and Patrick Ho. So do you think this is also a case of violating FARA, foreign agent registration as well? Have you thought about this, Mr. Carrick?
1,000%.
1000%.
1,000%. There are FARA violations that are very clear and distinct when you read the emails and the text messages, which is going to be problematic for Hunter Biden. So the FBI is looking at money laundering. That's only the beginning. When they take the hard drive, they take the text messages, they take the emails, they take Bobulinski's, his partner, who he put in one of the companies as the CEO, when they take his evidence that he has, they put it all together. This will eventually be known as one of the most substantial corruption scandals in U.S. history.
好，您知道刚才您是在特拉华州起诉啊，就交过去。未来立案也在特拉华州。如果检察官，特拉华州的法庭大家知道，这个乔拜登是吧？是特拉华州做了几十年的议员，整个特拉华州都是乔拜登的，相当于这个家乡。就是特拉华州的老百姓在做陪审团的时候，你们有没有这个把握？就是如果在最终起诉的时候，能不能成功说服全部的12个陪审团的成员给这个亨特拜登或者乔拜登定罪啊？
So as you have explained to your audiences, the evidence of this hard drive were turned to the Delaware County Police, and it is likely that in the future that the Bidens could be indicted in Delaware. But as we all know that Vice President Joe Biden has been a senator in Delaware for decades. So he has a lot of connections and powers within the state. The question would be if, Hunter Biden was indicted in Delaware, do you have any confidence to be able to have the evidence before a jury to prove or to show that Hunter Biden committed these crimes, Mr. Carrick?
I don't have any confidence in the Attorney General of Delaware getting anything done. I do have confidence, extreme confidence, in U.S. Attorney General Bill Barr. Bill Barr I've known since the 90s. I know he's a constitutionalist. I know him to be somebody that has extreme ethics. I think he's in a position right now where he doesn't want to look like he's trying to interfere with the election, but I think that he will oversee an investigation and conduct an investigation, a rightful investigation that touches on all the evidence. And these crimes, most of these crimes are federal crimes. These are things that a United States attorney in the state of Delaware, but he actually works for Washington. These are things that he would look at, and that indictment would be federal because there's going to be crimes in the jurisdiction of Delaware, there's going to be crimes in the jurisdiction of Washington, D.C., and I think there's going to be crimes in other cities around the country that are charged federally, depending on the partnerships, depending on the relationships, the companies where they were established. So I have great confidence in Bill Barr and the Justice Department doing something now that the FBI has it. But I can't say that I have any confidence in the state authorities doing anything to Joe Biden.
好的，这个刚才说到这个乔拜登啊，亨特拜登和这个何志平就是中共的已经认定的间谍，这个其实就违反了这个美国的外国人情报监控法，就是可以用外国情报就 FISA 法案的专门的法庭对他进行起诉。这一块就是当时朱利安尼先生专门给FISA法庭建了100多条监控线。您觉得会不会对用亨特拜登及拜登家族用 FISA 法案的这方面的来起诉？
So Mr. Carrick, add up to the question, since Joe Biden and Hunter Biden potentially had, actually Hunter Biden had contact with spy master Patrick Ho. So this is definitely a violation of FARA. So Mr. Lu De, he wants to understand for our Chinese audiences, because Mayor Giuliani back then, he had a lot of experience prosecuting a lot of cases and using FISA court to gather evidences regarding to these foreign contacts. So is it, so Mr. Lu wants to know, is it possible this time to use the FISA court to pursue a similar indictment or investigation? And can these evidence be gathered to used in a FISA court, Mr. Carrick?
I think, look, if you know Giuliani's history, he was a very aggressive prosecutor. You know, the Southern District of New York, where Giuliani was the United States Attorney, is the most aggressive U.S. Attorney's office in the country. And Rudy Giuliani was one of the first U.S. attorneys to put together cases under the RICO Act. This is a RICO case, a racketeering case. We know Hunter Biden, his uncle James, his father, the partners in the company, and then outsiders, whether with the Chinese government or otherwise. There's going to be a multitude of players in this RICO case, what I believe is going to be a RICO case. They'll get the evidence from wherever they can. They can use the FISA courts if necessary. They're going to use Hunter Biden's evidence. They're going to use the partners. You know what? And in this day and age, everything's retrievable. Whether it's on your phone, whether it's in your computer, whether it's, everything is retrievable. So they're going to gather evidence from everywhere they can. But I have to tell you, the evidence is overwhelming. This isn't a far-fetched case. This isn't a case that it's going to be difficult to prove. You have Joe Biden sitting on a panel like this, basically saying that he bribed a foreign official in the Ukraine to fire a prosecutor so that they would end the investigation against his son. That's bribery and extortion. It's an easy case. The case involving the Chinese spy chief, this stuff is all documented. This isn't difficult things to do. So I feel that once they get the investigation rolling, they put it all together, it's going to be a lot easier to indict Hunter Biden and others than it would be many other cases, because they kept everything. They have everything.
这个朱利安尼先生啊，这他现在是川普总统的私人律师，但是没有任何的公职啊，但是他又在，是不是有一种可能，就是川普总统任命他为一个秘密调查的一个这种机构啊，来做这个调查啊这件事，然后并且这个朱利安尼先生还说了，大选之后60天，给他60天，他就可以来定罪。他作为一个私人律师现在的这个职位，他凭什么说他可以60天来给这个拜登家族定罪啊？能给我们解释一下吗？
Okay, so Mr. Carriger, could you explain this to us? So Mayor Giuliani, currently he's the personal lawyer of President Trump. So on the surface, it seems like he's not holding any official governmental position at this moment. But as actually what he said during his podcast, he was saying that after the elections, he could start gather the evidence and start their investigation and have an indictment within 60 days. Consider his position right now as a personal lawyer. Could you explain why he's able to say this, or why would he will be able to do the special kind of investigation? Will this be something he worked with President Trump, Mr. Carrick?
So here's the way this works, and I think a lot of people they don't understand the process. Giuliani is the president's personal attorney. There have been a number of allegations made against the president that Giuliani, Jay Sekulow, and other attorneys had to prove to be false. They were just false allegations. They were made-up allegations, whether it was the Steele dossier or whatever the case may be. In order to do that, they have to conduct an investigation. Any attorney, your personal attorney, if he's defending you in a criminal case, what's the first thing he does? He conducts a criminal investigation, basically. He collects his own evidence. He puts the evidence together to prove that the government's wrong. In this case, these are areas that the government wasn't investigating. Or if they were, we didn't know about it. So in this case, Giuliani has the ability to collect the evidence and then turn it over to the government. That's a lot of what he's done already. Most recently, he's basically taken everything he has. He's given it to the press and media that was interested. We know that the FBI has the evidence that we had. They said so. They also said there is an active investigation going since 2019. So at this point, I think what the mayor's referring to is the investigative steps he's taken already. He would be willing to work with the FBI to give them anything they missed. If there's some questions, if there's something that they don't know, they don't understand, Giuliani, you know, he's been looking at this stuff since 2018, almost a year and a half, 2 years now. That's all that evidence is what he would turn over to the feds to assist them in their investigation. Not that he's going to go conduct his own. He's already done that. He's conducted the investigation. And when you listen to him, you know, to me, he's no different today than he was 20 years ago when I worked for him. He's exactly the same. He doesn't forget anything. He doesn't forget names. He doesn't forget locations. He looks at a piece of paper, he reads it, he remembers it, and he puts all this stuff together in an investigation, and it could be quite detrimental to somebody's future. You know, if he wants to indict you, he can indict you. In this case, easily. It's an easily indictable case.
因为作为我们中国人也很难想象这种情况，因为这种调查的私人调查，它牵扯到很多，要投入很多资金啊，也投入很多人力，并且还得有方法。你调查的话，你不仅仅是吧，你得有资源，你还得有各种手段，这些东西其实对我们中国人很难想象，说一个私人律师可以去调查一个副总统啊，这种情况能不能跟我们观众们说一下，这种怎么能够做到在私人律师可以调查这么详细啊
？So Mr. Carrick, Mr. Lu De kind of wants to explain to our Chinese audiences, because for the ordinary Chinese people, it's very difficult to understand because we don't have this rule of law like United States. So it's difficult for people to understand that you can have a personal attorney that can do an investigation on a former vice president of your country or of the United States. And because in order to do such an investigation, you would need people, you would need some of the methods, and you also need financial resources because these are like long investigations. So could you just explain why this could be done in the United States under the rule of law here, Mr. Carrick?
The primary position of a defense attorney is to defend the client and prove the government's wrong. When the government has allegations against a client, he hires a personal lawyer. That lawyer, the only way he's going to be able to prove that you're innocent, he has to conduct his own investigation. And investigations cost money. You know, Giuliani is somebody that he's probably one of the top criminal investigators in the country. He ran the Southern District of New York as a U.S. attorney. He was an assistant U.S. attorney before that. He was also the Associate Attorney General of the United States government, which is number 3 in all of the U.S. Justice Department. So there's nobody better to conduct a criminal investigation. And the reason he had to do this was to defend his client. And that happens. You know, if it wasn't Giuliani, it would be some other attorney that the president would bring in to defend him in the case, whether it was the impeachment, whether it was the Russian collusion, all these allegations that have come up that have been false. The president needed attorneys to defend him. Giuliani happened to be the one he picked. Giuliani led the defense team, you know, the team to defend the president. And in doing so, he runs that investigation. So it's nothing that he hasn't done before. Now he just does it on the other side. Instead of doing it for the government, he's doing it for a client. And unfortunately, his client happens to be the president of the United States.
好，最后一个就是，就您觉得现在这个亨特·拜登的硬盘事件对于川普总统这个大选，现在大选的选情，是有多大的影响？
Okay, Mr. Carrick. So the final question. So regarding to the contents, this hard drive, how much do you think this hard drive issue would have an impact on the current election, Mr. Carrick?
I think under normal circumstance, it would mean 80%. It would have an impact 80% of the election under normal circumstance. But we don't live in a normal circumstance world today. The mainstream media, the New York Times, the Washington Post, CNN, MSNBC, NBC, ABC, CBS, Twitter, Facebook, every single one of them have not reported on the allegations. They know, they absolutely know unequivocally that the allegations are true. They didn't report. Therefore, the reason it's not going to have an impact, a big impact on the election, is because most of the American public, or much of the American public, they don't know anything about it because they haven't seen it anywhere reported. You know, you have Newsmax, Fox News, OAN, they've reported on it. But for the most part, all the other mainstream media, they have conspired together as one not to report. Otherwise, it would have a major impact on the election, and it should, because Joe Biden wants to be the president of the United States. He wants to be the president. The president of the United States stands up, holds up his hand, he swears an oath to the Constitution of the United States. If you look at the conduct he was engaged in, he violated every part of that oath that he would have to swear to become president. He violated every part of it. And I think eventually the reality will come out public. It's just going to take a while to get there.
这个如果万一有一种可能，就是乔拜登偷窃了这次选举成为了美国总统，那这些所有的这些证据能不能这个在总统任上让他怎么样还可以让他定罪有没有这种可能？最后一个问题
Okay, so this is just a final question. This is a hypothetical question. So if just hypothetically that Joe Biden steals this election to become the president, can these evidence from the hard drive still be pursued and used for investigation and the potential indictment, Mr. Carrick?
Well, listen, if you look at the way the Democratic Party has acted over the last 4 years, whether it's Russian collusion, Ukrainian allegations, the impeachment, or now, right now, the complete ignoring of the evidence in the Hunter Biden hard drive, if you look at the way they've acted, could you trust them? No, you can't trust them. So if Joe Biden was to become president, and I predict he will not become president, But if he did, there is a chance that he could direct this investigation to be squashed, to be stopped. And I think it would be a disgrace for the American people and for the rule of law.
好的，当然我们都相信啊，乔拜登不可能成为美国总统，否则就是美国的悲哀。
Of course, we all believe that Joe Biden will not become the next president of the United States. If he did, it will be the disgrace of the United States and of the American people.
谢谢 Mr. Bennett， 然后
Thank you.
纽约警察局前局长 ，Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.